Welcome back, or if it's your first time, I'm glad to have you here. I'm Matt Fendora, and you're tuned in to the Choose to Live, Love, and Grow podcast, where we journey together toward becoming the best version of ourselves. Using mind, body, heart, and spirit as the anchors of our podcast, join me as we set sail into the depths of self-discovery, unraveling the interconnected layers that shape our growth. If you resonate with today's conversation, consider subscribing to the podcast. Your support means the world to us and ensures you never miss an empowering episode. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Choose to Live, Love, and Grow podcast, your go-to destination for personal growth and empowerment. Whether you're a loyal listener or a newcomer, I'm grateful for your presence. Today, we have the pleasure of chatting with Anne-Sophie Fluri. Anne-Sophie is a published neuroscientist from Imperial College London. She's Chief Science Officer at a mindfulness app, a neuroscience consultant, and creator of the REWIRE program for mental resilience. Some of Anne-Sophie's proudest accomplishments include partnering with the World Health Organization in an attempt to fight misinformation online, getting a scholarship offer to pursue a PhD in neuroscience from Imperial College London at 22 years old, and starting her own company to educate and inspire people on how to rewire your brain through the neuroscience of meditation. What makes Anne-Sophie's heart sing? Number one, her dog. Then comes nature, sunshine, a sense of community and belonging, and helping people. Without further ado, here's Anne-Sophie. How are you doing today, Anne-Sophie?
Hi, I'm doing really great. What a wonderful introduction. Thank you, Matt.
This is everything that you've done, so I didn't really do
It's
much.
just, it's nice to hear it, said back to you. I'm like, yeah, I did those things. Good for me.
Yeah, I think sometimes we get so caught up in the next thing that we forget all the things we've actually done, and then just hearing that from a different perspective is like, oh wow, yeah, I did, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's nice. I think we forget to grant ourselves that, little bit of affirmation every once in a while, and you only really recognize it when it's, said by somebody else, and you're like, okay, yeah,
Mhm.
cool.
So one of your proudest accomplishments, you said, which is super impressive, by the way, a scholarship offer at the age of 22 in neuroscience. First off, why did you choose neuroscience? And then second off, how did you get it at 22 years old?
Ah, I'm just gonna start with the second one first because I think I just got it because I started school when I was quite young. And I
Mm,
think it's just, I just kind of like went through it, never looked back, like didn't stop. My parents had an expectation for me to finish school and then finish uh further education. And so there was not really an option for me to do anything else. So I just yeah, I think I just got through it, and then I was 22 by the time where I got that offer. As for the offer itself, yeah, I was always really interested in psychology, and I actually studied psychology as my major in my undergraduate program. Um, but what really irritated me about all those studies is that people go through years of research and recruiting like thousands of people for these studies, doing these analyses and writing the papers and trying to get them published. Like it takes a long time. It's like it's quite a big piece of work. And at the end of every single study, you would say, well, all of these findings that we've concluded, we have to remember that there are individual differences, so they can't really be generalized. And that was just always there, right? You're like doing this piece of research to uncover the truth about something. You think you're onto something. You're like, well, let's say, for example, in 19 to 20-year-olds, it's this way. In teenagers, the brain is like this. In men, it's this. In women, it's that. But we don't really know because individual differences. And it just seemed like such a waste of not time, but like I just wanted to understand what is going on in the brain or in the body when you're doing this. I think I have quite an analytical mind. And so when I had my first neuroscience lecture, it was like, well, this is what happens in the brain when you're depressed. And this is what happens in the brain when you're scared. And here you can see how these neurons are receptive to this facial expression. And it just seemed a little bit more clear to me. And I needed that to be able to understand something. So after my first neuroscience lecture, I just went full force with that. I was like, this is what I'm going to do.
So, what was your first project that you started after you started your PhD? What was your first project that you started working on?
So I was actually working on, we developed an algorithm to alleviate motion sickness during virtual reality headsets. So at the time that I was starting this, obviously it's like almost 10 years ago. I don't know, a long time ago. I'm older than I look. And virtual reality was really up and coming. People were bringing out games, people were bringing out the headsets, they were trying to bring
Mhm.
it into market. But it didn't really pick up as much as, we thought it would. And that's because what you see, your visual information, doesn't match your vestibular information. So what the body is feeling or where the body is in space. And when there's that disconnect, that's when you get motion sickness.
Mhm.
So a lot of people, and I don't know if you've experienced it before, if you've played a game with virtual reality, you start getting sick pretty fast. And so we were working on an algorithm to feed in your individual brain waves, which would make it so that if you're playing a game or watching something, then we could actually make it so that you don't have motion sickness. And that got picked up by Oculus, Samsung came, like people were coming from all over. I think even the US military was visiting our lab trying to buy this research off of us. So it was really interesting. Not what I thought I would be doing. It's just something that kind of fell into my lap because I really got on with the head of the department and we just decided to work on a project together and they were working on the vestibular system. And so that was my first project and that was a pretty big one. I really, really had fun.
Yeah, that I mean, I can imagine and looking at it now, seeing the impact that that type of research has on so many people.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it was really phenomenal and I knew that we were on to something obviously when the military is reaching out or tech companies are trying to buy your research. And I said to my professor, I was like, well, if we develop this as an app, then we can own it, right? Rather than just selling it off to somebody for a one-time fee. We could develop an app, people would buy the app and then, they could have it on their own devices and we could kind of control that. And that would probably make us a lot of money. Um, and then I started to like pushing that idea a little bit further, and I realized that if I'm part of the university, then any idea or any product that I create or help create, the university is going to own 80% of it. So
Mm.
it didn't really make a lot of sense. It was one of the reasons why I actually stopped my PhD. So I quit and decided to continue doing research on the side, but as a paid employee rather than working as a PhD scholar under the
Wow.
university. So yeah, to my parents' dismay, I do not have my doctor title yet.
Are you going to go back and get it?
For sure. I'm really interested in I mean I love research. And I think at the time I was just, I didn't really know what I wanted to study at first. I knew I was interested in psychology, but then I just decided, okay, I'm interested in this. My parents have this expectation. I'm going to go study that. Afterwards, I also, thought, well, I don't really know. I don't have it figured out. Like, what do I want to do with this? And if I want to do anything in psychology or in neuroscience, I probably need even more education. So then I just pursued a master's, and it was just after the master's, I got the offer for the scholarship. And so I wasn't really thinking about it too much. I was just being pulled along, right? And
Mhm.
into this course. And then I just had the realization I'm, in my very early 20s. I'm spending all of my time in a lab underneath a hospital with no windows. I have no social life. I'm not earning any money. And I'm just doing this because I had the opportunity and it's fun and because I'm good at it. Um, but I did have that moment where I realized it's not, my life isn't my decision. And I wanted a little bit more for myself. And I always thought I can go back to research, and I always thought I will go back and pursue my PhD once I've found that one niche that is truly mine and like I truly care about. And I feel like I'm on that path now. So I feel like it's in my future for sure.
Awesome. So now you're focused more on mental resilience, correct?
Yeah.
So can you explain what mental resilience is, and then how do we get mental, how do we get more mental resilient?
So mental resilience, you can see it two ways. One way is that it's an ability to maintain normal cognitive and emotional functioning, whatever you're going through, even if you're going through hardships. In more of the hard sciences, you see resilience as like an ability to bounce back to your original form after a stressor is put on you. So you can see it as an ability to go through something difficult and then come back to normal, or an ability to go through something difficult while still being okay, right? And I kind of let people at this point choose what it means to them, but the principle is the same. It's an ability to take care of yourself and your mind and know that you can overcome things and know that you can come out the other side stronger or at least not worse off.
So it's more like there's a proactive side, a proactive version to it, and a reactive version to it.
Yeah, I would say it does benefit you to be proactive, right? It's like with your physical fitness and your physical health. It does benefit you to eat well, to exercise a little, to get outside, have some fresh air, and treat your body the way that it deserves to be treated and nourish it in the way that it needs to be nourished in order to function properly. Because that way, if you have a small accident, you're going to recover fast. And the same applies really to your mind. So yeah, of course, you can wait until something happens, but how do you know that you're going to actually have the tools available? It's much harder to go from bad to normal without the tools and like learn those tools along the way than it is to be prepared, have those tools already in your arsenal, and then deal with all the ups and downs that life inevitably brings you, and just know that it might not bring you as low as, if you weren't prepared.
So how do we build that mental resilience?
There are so many ways. I mean, I focus primarily on techniques like meditation, journaling, affirmations, breath work. I feel like those are so well researched now. They used to be a little bit on the woo-woo side. People didn't really understand them. And I think there's still a huge aversion, and that's part of my work is trying to help people overcome that and explain it through science so that they can see when I'm meditating, this is how I'm strengthening my neural pathways. This is how I'm rewiring my brain to become more resilient, because it really is, at the end of the day, just a scientific process that's happening in the brain. But yeah, a lot of it is also, CBT, cognitive work, and reframing the way that you think about stressors. So there are studies, for example, that show that people who perceive stress to be just all bad do a lot worse when they're put through stressful situations, whereas some people see certain stress as positive stress, and that helps them actually overcome things and get through it and perform better. So, there's a little bit of both. I really like to focus on the side of things where you can force your body to be in a calm state, and that way you're not as reactive. You see things in a clear mind. You don't like lose control if something happens because you just have the confidence. Your body is in this like very like well primed state to take on anything. Um, and what I look at is obviously all of my work is grounded in neuroscience and the scientific literature. So I talk a lot, you'll see on my social medias about the science of wellness. But yeah, I like to help people really understand their brains better. And when we look at how you measure resilience in the scientific literature, you have a few different ways. The way that I'm working with now is a specific program that maps out 6 different areas of your mental resilience. And you can actually do a quiz, a kind of a questionnaire to figure out how well you veer on those different aspects. So you'll have the first one, which is vision. That's your vision for your life, having clear goals, having an idea of where you want to go. Then you have composure, so your ability to maintain composure. You have your reasoning ability, that's the third one. Tenacity, which is, pushing through, persevering, always coming back to it, even if, you get knocked down, you get up again. And then you have collaboration, which is all about your relationships. the people around you if you're a team player. And then you have your health, obviously. And health can be anything from nutrition, exercise, and especially sleep.
So one of the most common techniques in handling each one of those categories is meditation, but the meditation works in different ways for each one, correct?
Yeah, so you have a lot of techniques that you can use, and they might be the same, like meditation, for example, and you can just tweak them to get a different effect out of it. Um, but meditation, if you just think of a very basic mindfulness meditation, just focusing on your breath, can help you across all of those. I mean, that's why I love this practice because it's just so well-rounded. You know, you meditate, you're immediately lowering your heart rate. So that helps with your health, right? That helps with your sleep. Um, you get more clarity of mind. So you are working on your reactivity, which is that area of composure. And when you're working on your reactivity, you can see things like a little bit clearly, and you're like, okay, well, this thing really annoyed me, but this is why it annoyed me. It's because there's something that's been bothering me or something that I need to work on, which that then affects your ability to reason, right?
Mhm.
And also when you're meditating, you're really just in the here and now, and you get such a clear sense of who you are as a person and what's important to you. And that then also tackles that number one aspect, that vision of your life, right? What's meaningful to me? What do I want to do with my life? So meditation is a great example of like how even just focusing on your breath for, let's say, 10 minutes a day can help you in all areas of your mental resilience.
So for someone who doesn't meditate, or let's say they always come up with the myths of like, oh, I just can't focus, I can't do this, like, oh, I have ADHD, I can't sit still. What are some initial ways that people can begin to actually focus on meditating to where it can become either a consistent habit or where they can actually gain some of the benefits of meditating?
Yeah. And I'll say I have ADHD and I find it very difficult to focus, but of course I can focus for hours on end on things that interest me. Um, so that's like a key factor of ADHD. But meditation has helped me, and it really works for me to maintain my focus for longer periods of time. And in the research, it also shows that it can really help supplement whatever it is that you're doing for your ADHD, if anything. So first of all, I just want to say to people who have those excuses or have those beliefs about yourself, I'm just somebody who can't focus, I can't like, it's not true. Maybe right now, the way that your brain is, that might be true, but you can always change your brain, and that's the key thing that I talk about. But it's also important to note that meditation as a practice where you're sitting down and maybe you're cross-legged and you're in a quiet place and you're just sitting there like a statue for minutes or hours on end, that's not all there is to it, right? And if that doesn't sound appealing to you, there's so many different ways that you can start meditative practice. And I would say the easiest would probably be just to practice mindfulness. And mindfulness, the more you meditate, the more mindful that you are in your life. But you can also just start by being more mindful. And that's just having moments in your day where you're really focusing on what it is that you're doing. You're not taking any time out to sit in the corner, cross-legged, in yoga pants or whatever. You could just be, making your coffee like you do every morning, and you just decide, okay, while I make this coffee, I'm going to turn off this podcast. I'm just going to focus with all my senses on the coffee that I'm making. So, you know, being in the moment, looking at the color of your coffee, or taking a moment to smell the beans, right? Or to notice, I've actually got the tea here. It's like to notice the warmth of the coffee in your hands. And just tuning into those moments, that's going to help you be more mindful. And the more you do that, the more you train yourself to be present and aware of things, because we just run around mindlessly, especially making coffee between calls.
Mhm.
You're not thinking of what you're doing, right? You're thinking of like, what am I going to eat later? What is this meeting about? Do I have my notes ready? And it really just takes that little moment. So my tip there is just tune into the senses. Choose anything, any boring thing that you're doing, tune into the senses in that moment, and that will be a great start.
So you wouldn't necessarily put a time restriction on it, like, oh, I have to do this for 3 minutes or I have to do this for 30 seconds. It's just in the moment, be mindful.
Yeah, I mean, I think having that timer already for a lot of people, because I know for me as well, um, it can be quite daunting because you're like, oh, well, I have to do this. And then if you don't do it, then you feel bad. And then you're like, where am I going to fit this in? And I have to, it becomes like a thing that you have to do or like something that you have to schedule for yourself. But there's a really cool trick that I used in one of my last companies, which we just had these little stickers. Um, and I would say put the sticker anywhere on your workstation. So it could be like on your desk or by your favorite mug or behind your laptop or whatever. And whenever you see that sticker, take a moment to tune in it to any one of your senses. So I'll see that
Mm.
sticker and I'll be like, I'll take a breath and calm myself. And then I'll be like, okay, well, what is the color of my desk like? I wonder what, you know, what colors make up the color of my desk, for example. You're just try in any way that you can to really analyze something around you,
Mm.
anything. And just having that sticker as a reminder will just remind you to kind of do it. And then you don't have any schedule or, anything. It's just whenever you happen to be reminded of it.
I mean, you kind of already answered this next question, but is there, for let's say there's somebody at that beginning stage of meditating, is there one that they should just avoid? That, hey, this is a little more advanced, and if you try this one, you're going to feel defeated and not want to continue with meditation.
I I think you really have to look at um, yourself and try and understand for yourself and have tried everything before. Um, if you're somebody, if you're eager and you're like, okay, I'm going to do 10 minutes a day, and then you know that that's actually not going to be helpful for you because after like 2, 3 days you're going to stop it, then that's obviously not a beneficial way to start. But I would say with the different techniques, I don't think that there's anything, I don't really think there is such a thing as like a beginner or advanced meditation, um, because meditation will always be the same thing. It's you might be able to do it for longer, or you might have periods where uh, you're able to focus on your meditation for a longer period of time. But that initial frustration that you feel because you're like, oh, I can't focus because it's new, um, that will start to go away. So just try and, get over that a little bit in the beginning. Just understand that it's part of it and that will still happen even if you've been meditating for years.
Mhm.
It's just that when you've been meditating for years, you're just like, oh, there I go again. Like that's my mind. Like, and it's normal because we're not, I mean, we can't, it happens. And you just
Mhm.
have to be gentle with yourself and know like, okay, well, I've realized now that I'm not focused. So let me go back and focus on my meditation. And that just becomes a little bit easier. But yeah, it's interesting because there are some people, for example, who can't visualize.
Mhm.
So obviously for them, visualization wouldn't really be a great meditation if you tell you like to close your eyes and think of a pink elephant, not like they just blank.
Mhm.
So it's only a small population, percentage of the population who have that. It's called aphantasia. They're still able to dream in pictures, but they just can't voluntarily recall mental imagery. Um, So if that sounds like you, because I've heard a lot of people who are like, oh, if you tell me to close my eyes and imagine like a meadow and a field and feeling relaxed, like I can't do that. Okay, it doesn't mean meditation as a whole isn't great for you. Just maybe that kind of meditation, don't go with it. I would say try as many different things. You can just go on YouTube. There's so many free resources. Try whatever. Um, for a lot of people, also something like visualization can be more effective because they feel like they're engaging more of their senses. So rather
Mhm.
than just like sitting there, closing their eyes and not thinking of anything and breathing, like they're like, okay, well, I can imagine a flower or imagine, um, yeah, whatever it is. You can imagine your future self, your past self. You can imagine a place where you feel safe and comfortable. So you can really play around with it. I really think that there's something for everyone there.
Hmm. They just have to start.
Yeah, just start. Exactly. That's good advice.
So one of the other techniques that happens in that would fall under each one of these categories is journaling. And what I've noticed a lot about journaling is everybody that I've talked to that start to have growth or success in their life, every single one of them journals in some way, shape, or form. So, can you share with us some benefits of journaling and then different ways that we can actually journal to help with our mental resilience?
Mhm. Yeah, I also love journaling, and it's something that came a lot later in my practice, even though it's something that I've known for a longer period of time that I should do. I've always known, successful people journal. Journaling is good for you. Write down a few things in the morning. Take some time out of your day. Like, yeah, I'm like, yeah, I know, but for me, having that pen to paper and that physical aspect of it was a little bit more challenging. So it's something that I only started more recently, despite knowing the benefits. So. Uh, Again, some of the benefits there, because you're sitting down, taking time, and creating that space to think and reflect, your heart rate's obviously going down because you're being present, you're in the moment. When you're journaling and when you're writing about something, most likely you can only focus on what you're writing on. So you're not thinking about, what your boss has said or the things that you still need to get from the grocery store or whatever. Um, and that in itself is just such a good um such a good practice because you're focused on one thing, and we know that maintaining focus helps calm down your nervous system. My favorite kind of journaling, or what I think is one of the most effective ways based on the research that I've seen, is gratitude journaling,
Mhm.
uh, which is also great news because it's kind of the easiest thing to do.
Mhm.
I think sometimes people also get overwhelmed with, all the journaling prompts and like you have to write about this, or, if you want to be successful, you have to journal about these things, or journal just about your whole day, and then you're writing pages and pages. Again, here I would say start with just writing down three things that you're grateful for if there's like a barrier for you, because then you're looking out for things to be grateful for.
Mhm.
And again, over time, that is training your mind to look out for more things to be grateful for. And that just puts you in a really good mood that um it just has so many benefits as well, with endorphins and feelings of trust for other people, especially if you're, grateful for somebody else in your life, to focus on those things. So yeah, I mean I can go on for ages about different ways to journal, but I would say start with gratitude journaling, and I would also say that there is no wrong way to do it, other than don't journal about, only negative things in your life.
Mhm. Yeah.
Because the same way that the gratitude journaling is making you look out for things to be grateful for, and making you aware of all the positives in your life, venting in the form of writing, it might help you figure things out if you have some, maintain composure throughout it. But yeah, if you only focus on the negatives, then that's also what will manifest, if for lack of a better word.
Hmm. Outside of gratitude journaling, what two other ways of journaling that is beneficial to increase our mental resilience?
So I think a nice one to do is to work through something that you've overcome, right? To try and unpick that, to, maybe the journaling prompt is, talk about one time where you've overcome something difficult, and rather than just focusing on the difficult thing that you've overcome, focus in your journaling on all the beneficial things that you've learned through that, the good things that have happened through that, and on yourself. Reflect on the good qualities that you possess that helped you overcome that challenging thing.
Mhm.
So looking at the outcome versus just the battle and the struggle. So anything to do with learning is great. And then anything to do with other people, because I think we have this society right now where people are really obsessed with self-optimization, right? You want
Hmm.
to expose yourself to sunlight in the morning. You want to like sleep with blackout curtains and sleep 7 to 8 hours, or just optimize everything, right? We're wearing like our Fitbits and Apple Watches, watching our heart rate variability. Um, and within all of that, I think something that gets lost is the aspect of community, because you're very focused on yourself and
Mm.
being the better version of yourself, optimizing yourself, fueling yourself, exercising, like to have the best body. Um, but your mental health and your mental resilience is so dependent on the relationships that you have in your life and the support that you feel that you have and that you can receive. And that's one of those aspects as well, out of those ones that I was talking about before, which is collaboration.
Hmm.
Um, and that not just for your mental health, but also for your physical health. You can see um, that it really helps with blood pressure, with heart rate, with all of those beneficial health outcomes. To have support, to feel like you have somebody to rely on. So I would pack that into journaling as well, to remember to sometimes either focus your journaling practice on somebody else, to write about maybe somebody that you admire and list the qualities in that person that you admire. It could be a friend of yours, it could be somebody that you don't know. And then bringing it back to yourself maybe and like, okay, what positive qualities in this person do I maybe also possess? So
Mm.
again, bringing it back to that increased sense of self and
Hmm.
like what we were talking about in the beginning, just having a moment where you're recognizing the positive things about yourself as well.
Yeah. So instead of comparing yourself, saying these are all the things I don't have, and this is how successful this person is, it's you're actually finding the similarities in them with you, and it also helps you realize, hey, you could be that person too.
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
have all those characteristics.
And I think especially this is especially nice when you're reflecting on your friendships and the people around you in your life. Like I might think about my one of my closest friends and then I list their positive qualities. These are the reasons why I like this person, because they're kind, because they're generous, because they have like great values, because they treat people nicely, because they, give time to charity, they, do things for their community. And then you have to reflect, well, if that person is this great and they're one of your closest friends, like you must be pretty damn good as well, right? You must be
Hmm.
a pretty great person for them to want to be associated with you, for them to love you the way that you love them. And then you can start to see, well, yeah, like I also do these things and actually um I also possess some of these positive qualities, or there must be something good about me for me to have this wonderful relationship with this magnificent person.
Hmm.
Do you have like an example and like a friendship of yours, like somebody that you think is like wonderful?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
I think it's funny because I think this person, we are so similar in the aspects of our mission. She focuses on younger girls. I focus on younger men, but we both come from a place where things happen to us that we try to almost not just necessarily work through, but give back to where other people don't do that as well. And I think that's why we're such good friends.
Yeah, but that's such a nice thing because this person is obviously doing so many wonderful things, and then you're like, well, I am too. And and kind of reflecting on that is can be pretty special. I mean, it can really do wonders for your sense of self.
Hmm. So one other thing I wanted to talk about, which is one of the things that we mentioned earlier, or that we've messaged each other about, is the psychological side. I think psycho or physiological side. So back when my early years of marriage, every time I would hear my wife sigh, it was like a triggering thing for me because that meant that something was wrong and I had to fix it. But then as years progressed, I realized, oh, there's actually benefits to it and you kind of need to do that. So it became less triggering for me as the years went on. So, can you explain the benefits or why we even do a sigh to begin with?
Yeah, so it's interesting because this is a sigh that we as humans have naturally. Like if you think of when babies cry, it's always, it's similar to this physiological sigh, which is it's two inhales, like
Oh, yeah.
the that kind of thing. And if you think about a baby like being upset or sniffling, that's kind of what's happening.
Hmm.
So you're bringing in the oxygen with this like deep inhale through the nose, and then you're topping that oxygen up, um, and then you're just releasing everything. So that's what a physiological sigh looks and sounds like. And it's quite a natural thing to have. And the research is showing now that actually, if you do this, let's say you're doing it every day, you're practicing, and even just 3 rounds, right? So 3 sighs, um, that it can help you lower your baseline heart rate,
Hmm.
um, which means that you're preparing yourself. You're actually making yourself more resilient to whatever it is that comes your way that day because you're already putting your body in a position where it's calm. And I think people kind of forget to do that. You just wake up, you're on Instagram or taking in social media, you see the news, like there's always something awful happening in the world, right? Or
Hmm.
somebody's messaging you, it's a little bit annoying. You're so at the mercy of everything that you're consuming, and people always have constant access to you because you're like, we're chronically online, at this
Hmm.
point. Um, so we're not really the ones who decide how we feel, although we should be, but we just feel whatever is being thrown at us a lot of the time. And so if you practice something like this, like the physiological sigh, you're reminding your body and your mind that you're safe, you're calm, everything is okay, and you're capable. And doing that every single day, you're just setting yourself up for success in that way. If something comes in, like a stressful message, you're not already like in this heightened emotional state where that's just going to throw you off your day, or it's just, you're going to worry about it forever. Um, because you are doing something to increase your baseline level of resilience.
Hmm.
And um, I sigh a lot. So my partner kind of has the same thing. We have this thing where he's like, "What's up?" And I'm like, "Oh, just breathing." It's not always something negative. Sometimes I just need to breathe. Sometimes I just need to get some more like oxygen. And there's different theories for why we sigh. If it's, involuntary, it's some people say it's to help cool the brain down,
Hmm.
to bring more cold air blooding pumping through, cooling down the brain. We don't really totally understand, but what we do know is that there are benefits.
And I think it's important to recognize those benefits and not be so perturbed by somebody else doing that, where it triggers you the way it triggered me years ago.
Yeah. And it triggered you just because you had an association that it was a negative thing?
Yes, because that's usually what that meant.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I can see that because I have the same thing in my relationship. They're like, usually when people breathe that way, it's because they're like huffing and puffing about something or upset about something, or they're trying to passive aggressively, make a point or make a statement.
Hmm.
Sometimes we're just breathing. So
Yeah. So one of the last things I want to talk to you or ask you about is you're the chief science officer for the app that you're working on. Can you give us some insights on what that is and where it's going?
yeah, so I've been working in digital mental health. I've worked for a mental fitness app, a mindfulness app, a sleep app, and currently a mindfulness game. I can't say too much about the game that we're working on now. I have signed an NDA, but
Uh,
it's very exciting because I was almost done with this digital mental health space, especially apps for meditation and mindfulness. You just you just have a very low retention rate. People love to have these apps like Headspace and Calm on their phones,
mhm,
but they're not actually using it every day. They just like to say that they have it, or they just like to say that they've used it.
mhm.
So you're smiling there. Is that the case?
Uh, Recently, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's also not really very engaging, right? Because it's the same thing every single day. Like there's a bit of variation here and there in the way that
Hmm.
you introduce the techniques, but there's a limited amount of techniques
Hmm.
available. And if it's something that you're supposed to do every day, like it can just get quite tedious and quite boring. And especially if you are doing it regularly, you might not even use the app anymore. You might not really rely on that. But obviously, if you have an app, especially if it's set up as a company rather than like a nonprofit, people need to make money, right? We need to pay the developers, we need to pay the designers, we need to pay like the instructors who are on there. So you do have to monetize it, but retention it really drops quite low. Even for apps like Calm and Headspace, it's like very measly the retention rate. So the amount that the users are opening the app every day for 30 days or whatever.
Hmm.
Um, and so I kind of decided I don't really want to work in that space anymore. I've had a lot of people reach out to me on LinkedIn who are developing apps like that, meditation apps, like calming music apps, and I give them all the information that I have from working in that industry. I just like will happily share all of that knowledge freely and sit on calls with them and talk through things with them because I think it's a great initiative.
Hmm.
But I decided not to do that for my work because of how frustrating it is.
Hmm.
And then I got a call from somebody who was working on uh, a mindfulness app, but it was a game, and he kind of showed me through it a little bit, and the approach is just it's very different, and it's something that I hadn't seen before. And so when they wanted me on board, um, I saw it as like a new challenge and uh, something fun and something that I believe in. So that's why I'm back there again. But I love it. Like it's I wish I could say more. Yeah, for now, that's it.
Is there an expected launch date?
We are trying to have the minimum viable product ready in the next 6 months. So I'm sure that if things are going to come out, I'll be posting about them on LinkedIn
So potentially by Christmas.
potentially.
Okay.
I wish I
I'll
could share more.
Yeah, I'll definitely keep an eye out for that because that definitely does sound interesting. Because I've used Calm. Right now I use Balance, but again, you get to that point where it is the same thing every day, and if there's no challenge to keep up with it, then why would you keep using it?
Yeah,
I challenged myself when I was using Calm, which is really the reason why I went so long of actually using it. I was like, man, I just want to get to 100 days. If I could do this for 100 straight days, that would be phenomenal. I got to like 110, and then I was so erratic with using it that it was like
yeah.
pointless to continue with it.
Yeah, and if you think of the other apps that are very successful that are about learning a new skill, you'll have like Babbel and Duolingo, right? And they've just really nailed the gamification of learning a language. They
Hmm.
have people who are like on there religiously learning languages, like doing really well, having loads of fun using it. Um, it just doesn't translate when you're working on a mental health product or a mindfulness product because it's like it just kind of goes against what it is that you're trying to instill in that person, which is, you're not wanting to chase that dopamine rush, right? Like you
Hmm.
you want the person to be at peace and happy and focused.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's a hard balance to get right. That's why the project that I'm working on is really exciting because it's a game, but it's not gamified in that way.
Hmm. So now that we're getting near the end of the episode, I have three final questions, which I ask all guests, and these are over the topics of what this podcast is about, which is live, love, and grow. So the first question I have for you is, what advice can you share about how to create a life that leaves a positive impact on the world?
My advice would be to get to know yourself and get to know your values and the things that, like you said, make your heart sing, and try to live a life in alignment with that. I think the most positive impact that we can have as individuals is to live a life that's aligned with our values and just to lead by example, right? And even through that, you're going to start to surround yourself with like-minded people, start to build that community and feel really, have that sense of positivity over the world because everybody that you're around believes in the same things and is working towards the same goals. And yeah, I think we all need a little bit of that, because we're exposed to so much that can be quite difficult to deal with, and we need to remember that we have the power to even just change the little world just around us, and we should do that.
We're always told who we should be, and based off of our gender or our beliefs or our political affiliations, this is who you're supposed to be. And that takes away from ourselves. And we just need to get in realignment of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you brought up that, religion and gender, because those stereotypes will keep you, um, yeah, they'll just kind of keep you closed off. And so many wonderful things happen when you have the courage to be who you want to be, express yourself the way that you want to express yourself. And, there's only one you in the world, and we all want to see it. If there's something unique about you, like put that out there because it's needed. Like that makes me excited, to see somebody who's doing something that they love and believe in. Like I just have all day for that.
hmm So my second question for you is, what are some practical ways people can cultivate self-love?
Again, I would say here a really easy way is with affirmations. And affirmations, again, like I know I'm a scientist. It sounds very, woo-woo and magical, and I would just say like just get over it. Just try it, just try it a little bit. Just say some positive things about yourself. If for example before you're getting on a podcast or whatever, just say to yourself, I'm capable. I've got this. The words that you say to yourself, they really matter because you'll notice how easy it is if somebody said something when you were younger that you're lazy, or you build so much of your self-worth around that. Even though
hmm
it's somebody that you don't even remember who said it, you just remember hearing it or like having a sense that people kind of feel that way around you and about you, and then and that stays with you forever. So just start to change that,
hmm
and that comes from within. What you say to yourself, or the words that you say the most, the things that you hear the most, your brain perceives them to be true. So, even if right now you don't think that you're the bee's knees, whatever, just say it until your brain is like, yeah, I've heard this so many times before, it must be true, because that's what will happen. And it sounds, wishy-washy, but it is just science. That's just how the brain works.
hmm So my third and final question is, what is one actionable tip someone can do today to grow 1% better?
I think that's a really great question. Here, I would say look out for things to be grateful for.
Mm,
I think that would be my advice. The way that I do that personally, I just, before I go to bed and when I wake up in the morning, I always say, what am I grateful for? Three things. And on some days where I'm feeling a bit down, it could just be, I'm really grateful that I have like fresh coffee in the morning, and I'm really grateful that I had a good sleep, or whatever it is. And some days it might be I'm grateful for, the opportunities that I have or the work that I've done. Um, but looking out for things to be grateful for, like I said before, it will continue to make you look out for more things to be grateful for. And I think that's such a wonderful thing a wonderful way to live your life. When you meet somebody who's always looking out for the good things, like you feel like energized by them, right? And you want to also be that person. So yeah,
mhm,
finally, like my advice, look out for things to be grateful for.
mhm. I think that's a great example too. One of the things that I enjoy doing is whenever somebody asks me, how am I doing? I always respond the same exact way. I always tell them I'm outstanding. And it blows them away. They're like, stop. They're like, well, I'm they don't know how to respond to that because they're like, well, I'm not outstanding, but sure, I'm glad you're outstanding. Or they'll be like, you know what, I am too. Like I've seen
Yeah.
both reactions to that. And there are days where I don't feel outstanding. Like I wanted to respond with, oh man, I'm so tired today. But because I made it such a habit in myself, I said that. And then I realized, you know what, I'm not actually that tired. And
Yeah.
it is just that rewiring of the brain by just starting simple and just consistently building on that.
Yeah, I love that. I'm gonna start adopting that as well because that's great because you're just like telling yourself how you want to feel and even if you don't feel it and you're like maybe I'm not outstanding, you're like, well, do you know what? Like I can be, who maybe I'm not that tired. Like I've got nothing to complain about today. I'm outstanding. So I love that.
Mhm. So how can people connect with you?
So the best way at the moment would be through LinkedIn. I post on there every single day, and I try and make my work very accessible. I focus on the science of well-being. So if you hear anything about meditation, I'll be posting studies about what's actually happening in the brain, studies that have been done with people, and yeah, on all sorts of well-being topics. And yeah, the next would be on Instagram. I guess we'll have the links in the show notes for everything. Yeah.
And then how can people support you on your journey?
So yeah, I think just connecting on LinkedIn is a really great way. I put, loads of stuff out there for free to help educate. But if you know someone or are somebody who's interested in like one-to-one sort of coaching, or I work a lot with companies. I use this rewire structure that, we've covered a lot of in this talk to help you identify where you could work on your mental resilience a little bit more, where your employees could work on their mental resilience a little bit more. And I do workshops. They can be online, they can be in person. For example, I did a workshop a few weeks ago in Ibiza, so in Spain, which is obviously not where I'm living at all. But I love opportunities to really work with people and companies. So yeah, I would really appreciate if you reached out to see if maybe that would be a great fit. Um, and yeah, well, I'd be excited if I hear from some people.
That's awesome. Well, Anne Sophia, I just want to thank you for coming on the show and acknowledge all the hard work that you're doing. It obviously shows in the fact that people are reaching out and trying to buy your research from you. And I'm excited for this mindfulness game to come out as well. And I will be one of the first ones to, jump on board with that.
Well, I'll send it through to you and see. Maybe you can be a beta tester.
Ooh, that would be awesome.
Well, thank you so much also for your time. Thank you for having me. Thanks for setting all of this up and really love and support the work that you're doing as well.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Choose to Live, Love, and Grow podcast. I hope you took something away from this episode that you can implement today, just like I did. May is Mental Health Awareness Month. I have a lot of great guests scheduled for this month that focus on mental health. During the month of May, I will be providing free resources to help improve our mental health. You can expect these resources to be sent to your emails if you subscribe to the Choose to Live, Love, and Grow newsletter. You won't want to miss these episodes. If you've enjoyed this episode, the ones before, and or you're looking forward to future episodes, please hit the subscribe or follow button. It helps me get this information to even more people. No matter what you do, choose to live, love, and grow. Thank you, and have an outstanding day.